The Iraqi Prime Minister ratchets up his rhetoric against Syria over last month's deadly attacks in Baghdad. But what's really behind this mounting assault on Damascus? Is it linked to the ongoing political rivalries inside Iraq? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Sahil Rahman. Iraq has been deploying extra troops along its border with Syria. It's the latest move in the worsening relationship between the neighbouring countries. Iraq has been accusing Syria over last month's fatal bombings in Baghdad. But as the political crisis deepens, Syria has been suggesting the Iraqi Prime Minister has ulterior motives for the allegations, as Bethan Howe reports.
The row between Iraq and Syria is escalating. On Saturday, Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki said he blamed Iraq's friends and neighbouring countries for militant attacks inside Iraq. Although he didn't specify Syria, relations between the two have been breaking down since last month's Baghdad bomb attacks. On the 19th of August, 2 truck bombs killed at least 95 people and left hundreds more wounded. The attacks claimed the highest number of casualties in one day in Iraq for 18 months. In various speeches and interviews since then, the Iraqi Prime Minister has claimed that Syria is harbouring Sunni extremists, allowing them to train on its soil. He's also said that 90% of foreign terrorists infiltrated Iraq through its Syrian border.
We have to declare war against those who are implementing foreign agenda and linked to foreign countries. We don't want to cut ties with those countries, but we will show full respect and cooperation only once they show the same.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has vigorously denied the allegations.
Syria is accused of killing Iraqis, although it welcomes 1.2 million Iraqi refugees. Such accusations are immoral and political.
On the weekend, the police chief of Anbar province said military troops and police had been sent to the border to stop militants crossing. He said that Nouri al-Maliki had ordered the move personally. It's not the first time Syria has been accused in this way. In the past, the United States has claimed the country has not had stringent security controls, saying that this has allowed fighters, including those linked with al-Qaeda, to cross into Iraq. After August's attack, which came just one day after a visit by al-Maliki to Damascus, Iraq withdrew its ambassador from Syria. Syria followed suit, putting diplomatic relations further at risk. Iraq says it has requested Damascus hand over a number of suspects in August's bombing, who they believe are sheltering in Syria. But Syria says it will not hand over any person without proof of their involvement in the attacks. President Assad has suggested that Nouri al-Maliki is using the attacks and allegations against Syria for his own political ends. The Iraqi Prime Minister will stand for re-election in January. In the aftermath of the deaths in August, a new Shia alliance formed without al-Maliki's own Dawa party, suggesting his traditional supporters may vote for a different candidate. Al-Maliki has now called on the United Nations to begin an independent inquiry into the bomb attacks. But such inquiries take time to establish, let alone find guilt or innocence. So some are claiming this too is a desperate attempt to improve the waning popularity of the Iraqi Prime Minister. Bethan Howe, Inside Story.
Well, joining me on the programme today in Damascus, we have Reem Haddad, a spokesperson for the Syrian Ministry of Information. In Amman, Maki Nazal, he's an independent Iraqi analyst based in Jordan. And in Cairo, Diyar Ashwan, political analyst at the Al-Haram Centre for Political and Strategic Studies. To all my guests, thank you. Reem Haddad in Damascus, could I come to you first? And I'm quoting from Nouri al-Maliki, the Iraqi Prime Minister, when he says 90% of the foreign terrorists who infiltrate Iraq did so via Syria. He said that on Monday, pointing the finger directly to your government. Damascus must be furious.
Well, let me start by saying that Syria was amongst the first countries to condemn the terrorist attack of August 19th that killed so many innocent people. At the same time, let me say that we strongly refuse and reject the accusations of Iraq that Syria had a hand in it. It simply is ludicrous to think that way. Now, there is a vast border between Iraq and Syria, it is a porous border. And we have asked on many an occasion, whether it was the Americans or indeed the British, or now recently the Iraqis, to monitor their side of the border, which they have not done up till today.
Issues over border security have been quite contentious since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. If I could just bring in Maki Nazal here, who's in Amman. This sort of deterring relationship isn't boding well for the stability of Iraq generally. How do you read the situation at the moment and this war of words between Baghdad and Damascus?
Well, it's a sorrowful situation that we are, as Iraqis, pushed into. I mean, we need Syria as a brother and a neighbor, not as enemy. We don't want more enemies. We already have the United States for enemy, and maybe another 40 countries with the United States. Syria has always been friendly to our people. I don't want to discuss the messages people are sending to each other, but I want to say that Iraqi people do not accept anymore.
But there are messages there. They're very strong messages that are being sent from Baghdad to Damascus. You can't exactly ignore them, can you?
No, we cannot ignore them. We say to all people, stop strong messages that might harm Iraqi people even more. I mean, the explosion in itself is a message from someone to someone. 500 people were killed, not only 95, and maybe 1,000 injured, just because someone wanted to tell someone a message, and Iraqi blood is shed in the streets.
Well, let's bring in Dia Rashwan. Let's bring in Dia Rashwan now from Cairo.
Yeah.
Mr. Rashwan, you've been listening to what our guests in Damascus and Amman have been saying. When this security and commerce protocol was signed just a few days before that bombing, there were signs certainly of ongoing better relations between Damascus and Baghdad. What did you analyse would come from specifically this agreement? Because it also included intelligence sharing, and one wonders where that intelligence sharing is at this present moment in time.
From the beginning of the American occupation on Iraq, we had and we have till now such problems. Everybody knows that the United States of America in the Bush administration era or in Obama's era has all the time problems with Syria, and all the time also has close friendship with the Iraqi government. I think that what's happening now in this accusation coming from Baghdad to Damascus is a part of what we can call the American new policy vis-a-vis Syria and vis-a-vis other actors in the Middle East, especially Iran and Syria. I think that to accuse Syria now to be a part of what happening in Iraq from this kind of terrorism happened in this last month, I think it's a part of a policy or attempt to isolate again Syria from any attempts, American attempts, I mean, to integrate and include Syria in the coming discussion.
Are you saying that the Iraqi Prime Minister? Are you saying the Iraqi Prime Minister isn't standing on his own 2 feet? He's actually doing America's bidding through the back door?
Yes, this is what I'm trying to say, because if you speak about the real intervention in Iraq, we have offshore, and the Iraqi Prime Minister, Mr. al-Maliki, knows very well that we have the Iranian intervention in Iraq, not only the Syrian. And if Syria has one dimension of intervention by supporting, as the Iraqis said, some of the resistance, Ba'athist or Islamist, the Iranians supporting everybody in Iraq, and they are here by every way.
Reem, one of the issues I think that is exemplified here is the multiplexal confusion that surrounds the politics of Iraq. If we just come down back to these accusations, if I'm right, Syria wants proof, doesn't it, that those that committed the crime are on Syrian soil, surely?
Yes, but just let me start by saying that Prime Minister Maliki was in Syria just before the explosions. 14 agreements were signed between his government and my government. These agreements would have benefited the people of Iraq and of Syria. They were going to establish a Council of Strategic Cooperation. Who can possibly benefit from such an act? I think this is the question that has to be asked. who would be likely to benefit. Why would Syria want to do something like that? After all, if there is trouble in Iraq, if there is instability, if there is no security in Iraq, it's likely to spill over. And this is something that we do not want.
But why is it then? Why is it, Reem, that we're then hearing from the Iraqi government that Syria continues to look after or shelter former Ba'athist supporters who left Iraq after the invasion?
Listen, Syria has at the moment 1.2 million Iraqis of all creeds. Now, it's not in Syria's policy actually to give up people simply because it is asked to. For us to give up innocent people up till now, we need proof and we need evidence. And this has been Syria's history. The very same people who are in government now were one day living in Syria and were on Saddam Hussein's wanted list, and Syria never gave them up.
No. Maki Nizar, let me bring you...
It's funny that they should be using the same rhetoric.
Well, it's funny. I'm going to actually go over to Maki Nizar now. I think you bring in a very good point. We're talking about evidence, Mr. Nizar. Is a video confession enough? Obviously, most courts of law would say no. Syria is saying no. So Syria is possibly justified for its stance in terms of potentially handing over anybody that might have been involved in the Baghdad bombings. They have a point.
Yes, I would like to add responsibility too. But as of Syria, of course, if we have proof against anybody, I mean, if the government has or the Americans have any proof against anybody, we as Iraqis, we would ask and demand Syria to hand them over. But this is politics, and we are dying for politics, and we are forgetting to ask who is responsible for the security. Americans are responsible for that area mainly, and of course the Iraqi army and police. I mean, why don't we ask who was responsible for letting these vehicles loaded with explosives just come through and kill people and threaten the green zone itself?
Well, it seems that the Iraqi government is saying that they've already found the people that they think paid off the security guards to allow those trucks through those security fences. But if I go back to Reem Haddad, what we are seeing is an increase of security personnel heading towards the Syrian border. So how do you read into that then, Reem, in terms of the relationship between Iraq and Syria?
Now, if the reason for that is to guard the border, to stop infiltrators from going into Iraq, for the security and stability of Iraq, then this is fine, there is no problem, if this is the reason. But if it is an escalation, then we should hope that it is not so.
Well, if I bring Mr. Rashwan in again, it seems that the personnel are not actually going to Saudi. Sorry, Mr. Nizar, it seems that the security personnel are not going to Kuwait or to Jordan or Iran or to the borders of Saudi Arabia. Obviously, you know, even if you try and move the blame game to one side, it seems the blame game is heading towards into Syria's direction.
Yeah, well, this time it's Syria. Next time it's Jordan. I mean, two MPs from Maliki's party said it's Jordan and the Muslim scholars. Others said it's Saudi Arabia. Some clerics are saying many things. We say many things in Iraq, and it's a terrible shame to follow what people say without solid evidence that we face the Syrians or the Jordanians or anybody with, and to forget our responsibility, our main responsibility towards our people. We should protect our people. As my colleague in Syria said, I would go with that police force if it's to stop harm crossing into Iraq. But if it's only harassment to a neighbor and a brother, it's a terrible shame on us. I'm ashamed. I'm from Al-Anbar province. I'm from Ana city. I think it's a terrible shame that we confront each other, we and Syrians. The Syrians will listen. We have time. Let's ask them again and try to get some more proof and get the situation down. It's all about the elections, I believe.
Well, we'll move on to elections in a moment. I want to go back to Reem Haddad there in Damascus. Reem, how would you like to, or how would the government in Damascus like to see any joint investigation proceed forward? I mean, what sort of information do Damascus want? If they're not willing to give up a suspect on the basis of a video confession, what do they physically want?
No, absolutely. The DVD that was given to Mr. Davutoglu, Turkey's foreign minister, is not really very credible. There's no way to verify it. Now, right from the beginning, when this whole thing started, Syria asked for an Iraqi investigative team to come to Syria with the evidence it has and to cooperate with a Syrian investigative team and to find out who really did it. And up till this moment, we have had no answer on that point from the Iraqi government. This is what we would like to happen. This is what we would like to see, for the two countries to work together, to cooperate, to bring stability and peace to the region, which is wanted by everyone in this area.
Okay, Mr. Diarashwan in Cairo. It does seem some cynics are suggesting that the rhetoric that we're hearing from the Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is all in order to gather and garner votes for the upcoming elections in January. How much do you think, from your analysis, is he using the Baghdad bombings for that end?
I think using Baghdad bombing by accusing Syria is to achieve many targets for Prime Minister al-Maliki. First of all is to give the impression and to confirm that Iraq's internal problems, especially with the coming back of terrorism and resistance, is not an Iraqi matter. It's manipulated, agitated even from outside. And I think that the expectation that Iraq, and already it happened, will see with the American withdrawal from the cities, more resistance and more terrorism. One of the reasons that Prime Minister al-Maliki now trying to accuse foreign actors and factors to be the reason, not something coming from inside Iraq, and also to put his government and his coalition now in the place of a victim of conspiracies coming from outside, with a coalition with terrorists inside Iraq. Perhaps Mr. al-Maliki thinking that it will give him and with coalition, his government, some sympathy, not only regional and international, but also inside Iraq itself. Yeah. I mean that by accusing Syria, Prime Minister al-Maliki trying to have more gains and to justify some phenomenon which expected to be appear in Iraq after the American withdrawal from cities, but his accusation for Syria are not the reality. And if you want, if we try to imagine why only Syria, we have Iran, we have Saudi Arabia, we have Jordan, we have Turkey, and no one of them was accused, then I think that by accusing Syria, Prime Minister al-Maliki trying to put the good and the excellent reason for him in the excellent place. If
we, Mr. Nazal, if I bring you in here, if we put the Syria accusation to one side, but the thought of what Mr. Rashwan just said is that Mr. Maliki is trying to deflect the internal security situation of Iraq by blaming a neighbouring country as a ploy or a tactic to garner votes for the elections. Is that something you would agree with?
Yes, I would agree. I think I said something like that. I mean, it's the responsibility of the Iraqis, not the Syrians, to protect us as Iraqis. And now they are just deflecting the directions towards Syria this time, and maybe towards our other brothers like Jordan the next time.
Mr. Nazal, do you think it could backfire? Do you think this tactic could backfire if that's the tactic that the Prime Minister is using?
Yes, I mean, this has been happening for 6.5 years now or more. It's always the same. It's always Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Every time, someone different. But of course, the Americans would prefer Syria for now to be the victim, because they couldn't prove anything in Lebanon. Now they are trying to get to them through us, and
okay.
Of course,
again, talking internally about the politics. Talking internally about the politics of Iraq, though, in terms of Nouri al-Maliki's Dawah party, which is a Shia party, which has now seemed to separate itself from the new alliance of political parties, the Iraqi National Alliance. How do you think that will play out? Will we hear more from them regarding the way Mr. Maliki is conducting himself?
Yes, well, you see, before the elections, many crimes happen and many things, many strange stories appear. So this is natural from all of them. They will all find stories to, attract people to vote for them. And I believe that there will be more tragedies in Iraq created by others, not necessarily by the government. I'm not accusing the government, but people will create chaos so that people will vote for them.
Well, with so much chaos, Mr. Dia-Rashwan, possibly needs third-party intervention here. And we have countries like Turkey, France and Iran also coming in to try and cool tempers down. How do you read their involvement in this situation at the moment?
As you know, everybody Turkey already involved in the problem, and the foreign minister of Turkey already visited Cairo, Damascus and Baghdad to discuss this problem, and we have also the Arab League now trying to play a role. The intervention of Turkey or France and other European countries in this problem, it means that we are not in face of a real accusation for Syria. Turkey will not intervene if they have any kind of solid facts or proofs that Syria is involved in such attacks in Iraq. It's a kind of, it's a real accusation of supporting terrorism. I don't think that Turkey or any other European countries, such as France, will discuss such thing with a country involved in such crimes condemned by the international community, and especially by the United States. It means that we are facing this intervention, Turkish intervention or European intervention, confirm my hypothesis that we are in face of a political problem, not a real criminal one. It is not a reality that Syria is sending or supporting terrorism in Iraq, but it's clear that this mediation means that we are in face a political problem. And I think that the Turkish foreign minister, when he declared for the media, he never said that we had already real proofs coming from or came from the Iraqi government. He said that we received something and we will show them for the Syrians. I think that this mediation will lead perhaps to a kind of reconciliation, but not now. Perhaps it will take some time. Okay,
I'll give the last word to our guest in Damascus, Reem Haddad. Whether it's a political problem that the Iraqis face themselves, or now this diplomatic spat between Baghdad and Damascus, how quickly do you think it will be resolved?
Well, I hope it will be resolved as quickly as possible, because that would be beneficial for the two countries and for the area in general. We do not want an escalation, neither should they. What is really, really important is that the Iraqis can stand on their own two legs, can solve their own problems without bringing foreigners into it, that they should get rid of the occupation in 2012, and that they should prove themselves to be a credible and legitimate government.
Well, we shall see what happens in the coming days and months. Reem Haddad there in Damascus, also my guests, Maki Nazal in Amman and Dia-Rashwan in Cairo. Thank you all for joining me on this edition of Inside Story. And thank you for joining me on this edition of the programme. We do welcome your comments and suggestions, so please do email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. I'm Sahil Rahman. Thanks for your time and your company. Bye for now.